So, yeah, I think what we need to do is we need to look at what we can do now. Yeah, so we understand that we haven't done enough in the past. And I mean, there are all sorts of reasons. If we get into those, we'll be here until 5 o'clock
we are
instead
where
of
we
4
are.
o'clock. But so let's not go back there. So what WCA would like to do is to be able to help cement producers to take these actions. So to connect cement producers, particularly in the Middle East and Africa, with things that are happening elsewhere that might be useful. And not only cement producers, it's also the regulators, the construction industry. You know, we can find examples where countries have been able to move forward more quickly because they've brought in a particular set of regulations. And maybe that's also helpful for the regulators to look at. So it's not just about working with the cement producers, it's also working with cement producers in particular countries with the other stakeholders in the cement industry to make it possible for us to move forward faster. And one of the things that we've been developing that we hope will be useful is something that Matthias is going to have a short presentation on in terms of what we call the DCAS tool, which is the decarbonization assistant. Now, this is a decision tool. I know that A³ also has another decarbonization analysis tool, which is looking at the baseline. So these are two separate concepts. But maybe, Matthias, I'll let you talk a little bit about the DCAS tool.
Yeah. I'll make it real quick.
Right.
I'll make it real quick. Something is tangling around here. Anyway. That is not mine.
No,
just keep going. Keep going. No, here it is. Yeah.
All right. Backwards doesn't work. All right. Okay, so real quick, the DCAS tool. You've seen that diagram before. That's the 2008 International Energy Agency roadmap. I like this very much because it provides some clarity over the course of the time, and it integrates everything we could possibly do into 4 groups with its terminal energy, efficiency, fuel switching, reduction of clinker to cement ratio, innovative technologies. I'm not going into any detail, but I'd like to draw your attention to the headline from roadmaps, and there are lots of roadmaps already. So many we can't read them all. What we want to do is to help cement producers to get from roadmaps to cement plant specific pathways. And that's a different term, a different wording, signalizing that within the complexity of everything that is being involved in those roadmaps, with a simple term, novel technologies. You know, open up the box of novel technologies and you'll find 250 different technologies. So if you look at it from a cement plant perspective, then this roadmap doesn't tell you much. So you want to know what is the best way for me to go. I have a very specific situation and I want to know what is the best pathway forward for me. So that's what we want to do, from levers to cement plant pathways. And you know this technology tree, I've been pointing out at that earlier, just to feedback on something we had before. You know, carbon capture can be done, membrane, cryogenic, calcium looping, oxy-fuel, amine scrubbing, hundreds of technologies. Which one is the best one for you? There is no general answer, because the best one for you is the one that fits best to your ecosystem. And what is your ecosystem? We're going to see that. So the decarbonization assistant is there to suggest to you what would be the most feasible and potential solutions for you to go. I'm skipping a little bit. The ecosystem. Every plant has a different ecosystem. Some things are comparable, some things are specific. And if we just generalize a little bit and say, for example, the feedstock, the availability of feedstock material, the properties of that feedstock material and the prices. is one aspect of your ecosystem. Then, of course, you have a technical setup of your plant. You have a certain technology installed that allows something and other things not. Then, of course, the whole aspect of operation of a plant. We've talked about operational excellence and the potential to raise in optimizing the operation. And then something that comes up increasingly more important, and I think this is really new to us as an industry, because the connectivities and logistics. You know, you can't do calcined clay if you don't have the respective clay. You can't do recarbonation as a sequestering method if you don't have the right minerals to do so. So you can't do carbon capture and then put it into a pipeline if you have no pipeline connection. So logistics is going to be a driving element on a future cement plant. So this is the ecosystem, and those are some points which are relevant for these individual aspects. Possibilities for modification of retrofitting. You may not have space to install a capture plant. You may not have the right technology for it. You may not get the permits or whatever. You may not have access to carbonaceable materials. You may not have access to kaolinitic clay or whatever, or the prices aren't right. Anything can be complex in that matter. The operation of the plant is probably what can be solved the easiest way, and we've been talking about that a lot. RTOs, IIoT, digital twin technologies, but also conventional stuff you can start right away tomorrow. And then, as I said before, very importantly in the future, connectivities and logistics. Do you have nearby resources? It doesn't make sense to import feedstock over maybe more than 300 kilometers or something like that. Do you have nearby transportation options? Can you go by barges, or do you have to go by trucks, or is there a pipeline? We cannot connect all the 5,000 cement plants to a pipeline. So logistics will be very important in driving. So what the DCAS tool is supposed to do, and we've proceeded to structure the logics and the architecture of the system. We're still developing it and hope to be publishing that soon for the WCA members. It takes the ecosystem of the plant, and that is plant-specific, not generalistic, not CMEX as such, but every plant by itself. Puts that information into the DCAS tool, and then the DCAS tool gives you a selection of possible moves towards decarbonization. And again, here I'd like to highlight, and sometimes I get the impression that we are discussing the problem as if it would be, I don't know how to decide. Do I do this or do I do that? Forget about this. You have to do it all. You're going to have to do it all. The question is, when do you start doing what? You have to do it all. You have to increase your operational excellence. You have to use biogenic fuels. Many of those things are not exclusive to each other. Get going. It's urgent. Start doing something. And this DCAS tool shall provide you with proposals based on your specific ecosystem. What is the best thing for you to do? And as I said, these things are not excluding each other mutually. They are adding up. And accordingly, what the DCAS system does, it provides a rating for you. What should you do first? What should you do second? And it's doing that on terms of KPIs. It's going to calculate return on investment, the necessary CapEx, and the to be expected OpEx of a measure that the system will be proposing to you, depending on your individual case. In this case, for example, we look at options: biofuel to the calciner, installing an RTO, doing calcined clay, or using fly ash. And you'll see there's a logic behind it that calculates the OpEx and the CapEx, the return on invest, and accordingly makes you a proposal on what you should do first and what you should do second, what you should do third. Of course, this will not dive into each and every nanometer of detail. but it will provide you enough hook lines which you could work on. You would have to go for a more detailed investigation, of course, after that. What is important to understand, this is a service of the WCA, because the DCAS system has a lot of information contained that needs regular updating, like, for example, prices for certain fuels or logistic costs or whatever. So that needs to be serviced and updated, so that if you use the tool, you always get the actual price information and cost information. Specifically, price and cost is very sensitive to this. I walked through that quite quickly, or even somebody decided me not to do that. Yeah, I was going to show an example. There it is. Just to give you an example of what it could look like. For example, if we look at the lever changing the clinker content in cement, we are assuming to install a clay calcination plant here for $21 million US, and then we're going to change the cement recipe with 30% clay. And you don't have to dive into all the detailed numbers, just to say, you take benefit from a production increase, as we had it this morning already, because you keep the clinker production at the same level and you add another portion of calcined clay to it. And then the system calculates, all those benchmark figures, like what is the cost per ton and all this kind of stuff. And then finally giving you the advice or the proposal on what to do. Maybe that is in all short time what should be said.
Thank you, Matthias. Yeah, so the idea with this tool is it's really to help you prioritize the steps that you should consider now. As Matthias said, it requires more detailed investigation once you've shortlisted those steps. So this is something that one of the committees one of the professional committees in the WCA has been developing, and I'd like to thank KHD and FEEV, who've done a lot of the heavy lifting on the tool so far. So if any of you in cement plants would like to try using this tool, it's pretty clunky still at the moment, because it's still in the process of development, but I think it's ready to be taken out and tried. So do contact me if you would like to use it, and then we can talk about how to make that happen. I think perhaps just looking at the time, we should probably bring things to a close.
If I may, Ian, this is the last time we'll all be gathered like this, apart from a dinner tonight. From my perspective of thinking the unthinkable, I just want to leave you with one thought. It's not about being pessimist or optimist or realist. It's about being a solutionist, finding solutions to what we've been raising over the last 36 hours. Solutionist.
Sorry, did you ask me a question?
No.
No, okay, that's all right then. That's all right, excellent.
Ian, I was talking to everyone else.
Okay, that's good. So we are getting ready to take a photograph of everybody. So before you get any coffee or tea, would you mind going to the area where the elevators are, and we will take a photograph.
Before we close,
yes.
Do you allow me a little experiment?
Oh, an
Very
experiment.
short. Very short. We're talking about getting done, getting a dynamic system kicked off, right? I'm sure you all know that phenomenon of standing ovation. And it's always the same question. The guy next to you starts off standing up and applauding, and you're sitting there, well, should I do, should I not, should I do, should I not, And in the end, everybody is standing up and applauding, and you're probably the last one to stand up, and you say, oh, shit, I have to stand up. Yeah. I'm the last one. Before we leave the room, let's kick off a standing ovation. Let's applaud to each other.
Okay. All right.